And so I've introduced some didactic tools. So that's just a fancy word for tips and tricks that hopefully helps you guide how you use these tools here. Because if you ask boring questions that you can't really discuss, then people are not gonna like questions in class any more than lectures, right? Or if you make video lectures on boring topics, on topics that the student can't see the relevance of, because maybe you're introducing this because they're going to use it in a course a year from now, right? They're not going to like the lectures, and it's not because they prefer real lectures to video lectures, right? It's just because they don't like what you're lecturing about. Okay, so it's just as important to really think about what you're doing didactically, right? So active learning, so learning by doing. They're going to learn more by doing than by listening. Okay, so the flipped classroom approach is very good for this, right? So the lecturing, that's done at home with videos, and in class they then work on questions and discuss questions, right? Whereas normally that would be flipped. Peer instructions, the peers are often better at explaining things than you are because they're on the same level. Cognitive load, right? As you'll find, you as a person, so it's not just students, it's also you, if you're honest with yourself, right? You can learn 3 or 4 new things at a time, let's say for a lecture or for a week. And if you look at your curriculum and look at all the new things that they have to know, right? What you'll find is that the cognitive load is way too high. You as a teacher, your main responsibility is to prioritize. Spaced learning, that's another thing. Concepts don't stick until you've seen them 3 or 4 times over a period of time. So for example, think about a foreign language, right? You can't be told the Russian word for phone book once and then be expected, don't use it and then be expected to know what it is 2 weeks later, right? You have to practice over and over again. And if you never review in class and you keep loading new things on their shoulders again and again, right, that's not going to work, right? You have to make room for spaced learning. Also, formative assessment. If you get immediate feedback, and if you're not completely stressed out because these questions count for points, then answering questions is an excellent way of learning, right? So you learn by answering questions, but only if you get immediate feedback and only if the pressure is off, right? And by pressure I mean points. Also, if these count for a lot of points, you can't give immediate feedback because then students will just share the answers. If you remove this point pressure, you can give immediate feedback, and asking questions in the video, in the what I call the reading quiz, during lecture, and so forth, that's an excellent way of learning. Right? And finally, this, when you design your curriculum, this just in case versus just in time approach is really important. This just in case, you'll need to know this later, is not a good motivator for teaching. And there's no real need for using that. In fact, it's pointless, right? Because this just in case assumes that something they've been taught once, right? I don't know, 2 weeks ago or 2 months ago, that they'll remember. They won't. If you don't believe me, ask them. Ask the question in class and you'll find they can't remember anything. Right? Not because they're poor students, but because they're human beings. Right? So once you realize that this just in case doesn't work, right, then you might as well do just in time, and that's going to lead to much more motivating and relevant curriculum.